First of all, greetings to everyone. Before I commence with the presentation of my research project, I would like you to ask a question about the topic I am researching. This question was developed by the University of Toronto, where I had the chance to take a MOOC, a massive online open course called Aboriginal Worldviews and Education. So pause the video and think about why it is important to study the epistemological aspects of the indigenous worldview. Do it for 10 seconds. According to Jean-Paul Ristow, there are many reasons to take into account the indigenous worldview. I highlight that the education system is incomplete without the indigenous cultural legacy, and considering that the world is in an environmental crisis. Indigenous knowledge is essential to deal with such a problem, and finally to uphold social justice. If you are interested in the course offered by the University of Toronto, join Coursera and learn more about it. Here you have the link. Well, after that, let's continue with the presentation that has as a background a woven tapestry of the Wayuu indigenous community, all because of a saying that expresses the textiles were the books that the colony couldn't burn. We begin with the title, Perspectives and Understandings of Indigenous Learners Towards English Language. This is the research problem. Sociocultural, historical, and linguistic phenomena can have an impact on indigenous learners' English language learning processes and perspectives about this language. Bearing in mind the reports that the Secretaría de Educación Distrital of Bogotá provides regarding the student population, it is reported that there are a total of more than 1,200 children belonging to indigenous communities in the Colombian capital. This population also provides a cultural amalgamation to the territory since they belong to communities such as Amora, Arhuaca, Agua, Cofam, Emberacatío, Chamí, Dodiba, Eperara, Inga, Muisca, and Wona. It should be added that a quarter of the indigenous student population in Bogotá was the victim of forced displacement and does not speak Spanish. And for this reason, the creation of classrooms with a differential focus for greater assimilation and adaptation to the regular classroom setting was proposed as a measure for inclusion in the education system. Ana Maria Cuevas, an official of the Mayor's Office of Bogotá, says that there are relevant spaces for this purpose, the first of which is the differential classroom, where bilingual indigenous members teach the legacy and cultural heritage to their learners, in turn the foundations of Spanish. After that, the students are incorporated into the acceleration classrooms of primary and secondary education in order to give the step to the integration in the regular classrooms. So, the indigenous apprentices are immersed in an environment to which they are adapting, so their perspectives do not resemble those of so-called regular students. At the same time, according to the official curriculum, they must learn the English language, which can have an impact on their educational process. After the implementation of the project, the type of impact is consolidated in order to not resort to dichotomies, positive or negative impact. Therefore, the research question is, what do indigenous learners understand about English language and its learning in a plurilingual context? Why a plurilingual context? Because they are exposed to the Spanish language at the school, to English in the respective class sessions, and to their native language at home. Moreover, we will see what vision they have about the English language, if it is perceived as a third language, a foreign language, among other possibilities. With regard to the justification in terms of social relevance, This project aims to impact the process of learning English by giving individuals from indigenous communities a voice so they can express their perspectives and thus also contribute to areas of social justice. Theoretical value. With regard to this aspect, a deepening is proposed in order to proceed with an enrichment of the field of the language. This line of research is available on the website of our curricular project. It is worth mentioning that the students can enrich each line with their research projects. The next part is related to the theoretical concepts. According to Granados Beltran 2015, he states that critical interculturality works as a decolonial, ethical, and political project aiming to challenge and transform existing structures, institutions, and social relations that maintain inequality in such a way that other ways of being, thinking, living, learning, and knowing are acknowledged. Starting from the principle of the differential focus classroom, the question arises around this strategy. It really tends towards an intercultural education or a multicultural model. Remember that in intercultural education, all individuals enrich their own culture and better assimilate the foreign culture, in this case the indigenous one. Now, the idea of social justice beats in the reflexive balance of roles principle of justice, basic freedoms, principle of difference, and affirmative action as positive discrimination based on justice understood as equity, an issue that has been discussed and partially resolved by the principle of equal opportunities. Struggle against the unequal distribution of goods that belong to everyone, the request or consent from the common good, the idea that justice equals peace and the awareness of this in individuals are all components of a just social system. The balance of social inequalities for the benefit of the left privilege, giving justice the category of equity as a social concern for human and social development already defines the new situation of these issues in humanity. Now, what about social representations? Jodelet 1986 proposes that the notion of social representation places us at the point where the psychological and the social intersect. First of all, it concerns the way in which we, as social objects, apprehend the events of daily life, the characteristics of our environment, the information that circulates in it, to the people of our near or distant environment, in short, the spontaneous, naive knowledge that is important to the social sciences today. That which is usually called common sense knowledge or natural thought as opposed to scientific thought. While for Moscovici 1986, a social representation is particularly modality of knowledge whose function is the elaboration of behaviors and communication between individuals. It's an organized corpus of knowledge and one of the psychic activities thanks to which men make physical and social reality intelligible, integrate themselves into a group in a daily relationship or exchanges, and release the power of their imagination. We continue with the methodology. Paradigm, qualitative. It can be defined according to Jackson et al. 2007 as primarily concerned understanding human beings' experiences in a humanistic interpretive approach. This approach can privilege the exploration of the set of beliefs of participants and also texts that vary along a continuum from content analysis, discourse analysis, and narrative analysis to conversation analysis. Design, ethnographic case study. Bautista 2017 states that the ethnographic case study can be implemented when in the learning process there are cultural elements that have a great influence of the research, as with indigenous communities in the Colombian context. As a way to reflect, in accordance with the constitutional framework, the Colombian state ensures the recognition and protection of the country's ethnic and cultural diversity. This in turn means that all individuals from minority groups such as Afro-Colombians, indigenous people, palenqueros, raizales, and the Ron community are guaranteed the same rights as those who do not belong to an ethnic group or who don't recognize themselves as such. Such recognition and protection concerns the many spheres that turn around the Colombian society, including education. Ethnic and cultural diversity in the classroom function as a cross-cutting theme for strengthening equity and coexistence in the social sphere, all mediated by a process of intercultural teaching and learning. To this end, it is essential that the various actors in the education sector be competently intercultural, which implies an epistemological and axiological positioning for timely development in interpersonal relations with individuals belonging to any ethnic or cultural group. Intercultural education therefore favors processes of otherness with individuals not only from indigenous communities but also from other ethnic groups, and in turn an understanding of the national cultural amalgamation present in the Colombian capital.